Hello, friends. Welcome to The Savory Scoop, where we discuss topics to grow a little wiser each day. For this episode, we have a beautiful co host joining us to share more on the topic of shadow work. Her name is Melissa Carroll. She's a writer, Reiki master, shadow work teacher, and yoga instructor who has taught yoga and meditation for 17 years with the aim to help others find inner peace and cultivate presence. A former college creative writing professor, Melissa is the author of 3 poetry collections and is the editor of Going Om, real life stories on and off the yoga mat. She has led yoga retreats and yoga teacher training programs for many years and now offers workshops on shadow integration, mindful writing, and yin yoga. You can learn more about her on theyogawriter.com. Thank you so much, Melissa, for coming on this podcast. We're super excited to have you. So, in this episode, we're here to talk about shadow work. And I guess we keep hearing this word shadow. We need to start working on our shadows. So, if you could if you could just explain to like everyone, someone like me who may have never heard of shadow work, like what is that?
Yeah, it is amazing because shadow work has become so much more just like in the ethers these days, right? Whereas 10 years ago, nobody was talking about shadow work. And now it's it's just more part of the collective conversation, which is really wonderful, I think. Because shadow work is the practice and the process of meeting yourself where you are, I think. It's the practice of opening up to all of who you are, even the parts of yourself that you tend to judge or neglect or shame. And so that's this process of slowly and lovingly actually cultivating more self awareness and self acceptance, which can lead to a sense of greater wholeness too. And then greater acceptance of others as well.
And how did you when did you hear about this? Like, how did you get into this?
I got very lucky because I was asked to co teach these group workshop sessions that were revolving, they were like really experiential, in depth book clubs, basically. And they were led by, this was back in 2017, 2018, by an amazing therapist. And she wanted a yoga teacher to co-lead some mindfulness sessions inside of these like deep experiential book clubs, just to help add that level of meditation as well. Dr. Ashley Sweet, she's a mental health counselor and a sex therapist. She's extraordinary. And so we were leading these sessions in St. Pete, Florida. And the book that she chose for our third group was a shadow work book that I had never heard of. It's called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. And it changed my life. This book and the shadow work practices that Dr. Sweet led in this 8-week course that we co-developed together. Like, I got so lucky. I got to basically get paid to learn shadow work and sit next to her in these circles and do these exercises. And just the level of aha moments that were unfolding for me in every area of my life, in my relationship to money, my relationship to my work as a yoga teacher and all of the narratives and stories about that, my relationship to my relationship, and my relationship to myself.
What a wonderful
Yeah.
opportunity for you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. And thank you for the work that you do.
Oh,
It's
thank
such
you.
a beautiful piece in the journey, as we're humaning.
Yeah, it's hard being a human, you know? I don't know how I'd be able to get through it without meditation and mindfulness and breathing techniques. I'd be having a pretty rough time.
Same.
And shadow work. So yeah.
Well, everything happens for a reason. So
These techniques are so powerful.
you were meant to be there at that moment so that you could share your experiences with everybody else and help them along their journey.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel very fortunate. And shadow work is such a profound practice. So it's one of those things that when I first learned it, I was like, okay, I want to learn it all and go deep. So I just kept studying and studying with different shadow work teachers online, and then began to offer it myself in conjunction with yoga, because that's the doorway, right? I'm not, full disclosure, I am not a licensed mental health counselor or anything like that. But we can still, anybody can practice these techniques. And I came through the doorway of yoga as a yoga teacher, and combining the physical asana practice and the pranayama, the breath practice, really allowed the mental work of shadow work and the self-reflection involved to integrate and metabolize in a powerful way.
So when you say shadow work, or when you hear about shadow workers, could they be from like multiple paths? For example, like a yoga teacher may go into it, maybe even a psychologist may go into it, or someone into shamanic work may go into like, and is
Oh,
it
yeah.
similar in no matter who comes into it? Is the work the same, or does it sort of align with those dimensions, like the yoga and
I love this
yeah,
question. Yes, I love this question so much.
Very
And
good question.
you're absolutely right. And I would be remiss if I didn't say the term shadow work, the term the shadow, was originally coined by Carl Jung. So it does stem from the world of psychology and Jungian psychologists, and it takes years of study and practice to be a certified Jungian therapist. And so yes, there is that dimension of it. Originally, Jung defined the shadow as our unconscious mind. And the metaphor that is often used in shadow work practices is the iceberg. And so our conscious mind, our conscious thoughts, our conscious motivations, what we believe drives our lives, is just the tip of the iceberg above the water's surface. But as we know, below the surface of the water, the iceberg is much, much, much bigger. And that's actually all the stuff that we can't see, that's in the shadow, that's behind us, if you will.
It can be
And
stuff that you've like stuffed down. It can be your patterning, your conditioning, your unconscious beliefs, your limiting beliefs, stuff you don't even know that you're doing, the things that are keeping you back and holding you back because of your beliefs and patterns, things you just never have dealt with either.
that's
For
precisely.
me, for me,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
me
sure.
too. That's exactly it. And that is where I think a lot of the common threads are for all of these different practitioners. So to your point, Simi, it's not like the Yoga Alliance in the yoga world where there are these sets, and even within the guidelines and the standardization of yoga, there's a lot of freedom for people to teach whatever the heck they want. And the same is kind of true these days with shadow work. That might change with how popular shadow work is becoming, but right now you don't have to have any certain qualification to teach shadow work. I would always recommend for people going to learn anything from anyone, like definitely research the individual. Some kind of certification in a relevant field would be advised, certainly.
I
Yeah.
can relate to that. Yeah, go ahead, Debbie. Were you going to say
Oh, no, I
something?
was just going to say, touching on what you said, I would imagine that, shamanic people, yoga teachers, everybody has their different perspective and experience and own shadow work that they've done so that they can offer their own unique perspective, and ways
Right.
of teaching from their experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, and now I was going to say something else, but now that Debbie, you mentioned that, something else just came to me, which is from like when I was learning yoga. So I got the 200 hour at the Lotus Pond, and that's how I met Melissa. She was my teacher, my first yoga guru with Val. So
That's great.
she has a special place in my heart. It's I still remember it was like the first Guru Purnima. It was like 2016, and I remember uh, saying a prayer and including you, Melissa, and Val in that prayer. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
it meant good.
I'm very honored. I would never consider myself a guru. I am very much a student, but thank you. I am very happy that I got
Yeah, I guess
to.
like gurus, like, whoever shows up in the moment that you need something,
Right.
right? And shine some light on it. And so I'm forever grateful to that. So anyway, so like that teacher train. So I got into yoga through Buddhist teachings because I was going to a center in Safety Harbor, and it was Kelsang Chokyin that was teaching at the time. And then I would meet yoga teachers, and then I heard about Lotus Pond, and I'm like, oh, let me just go see what this is all about. Got the yoga teacher training done just to realize that I, just like we were saying earlier, like 200 an hour, like you think you know stuff, but you really don't know anything until you start diving into the yoga teachings. And and now that we are talking about shadow work, it kind of reminded me of this teaching in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And this is like where I started learning a lot more about that, maybe like a couple of years after I got my teacher training. And and there's a version that I absolutely love. It's maybe you know about this Sri Swami Sachidananda, his
Yeah.
translation. Yeah. So he talks about like the mind having three parts to it. The first, there's manas, which has like the memories that create like attraction and aversion. And then there's like buddhi, which is the intellect, which discriminates. And then you have the ahankara, which is like, oh, there's me, there's you, like that sense of I, right? Or
Mhm.
I think we call it ego. So one of the examples he gave, which like stuck with me, and I think probably I didn't, maybe I was doing shadow work at the time and I didn't know I was doing it. One of the example he gave was, those three compartments in our mind. So the manas will say something like, "There's a smell. The smell's coming from the kitchen, and smells like a cookie," right? And then the buddhi, the intellect, discriminates and says, we've had this cookie before. It tastes so good. And then the the ahankara, the I goes, oh, if it tasted that good, I want one now. And then we do the action, right? So it's almost like the shadow work. It almost seems like we're shining light on that conditioned pattern,
Yes.
right? And
Yes,
then like, but
exactly.
it's almost like, but what's the method to shift that? Or like, right? That's the
So
work.
beautifully
Woo!
stated.
So,
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the other piece of yogic philosophy that I find really resonates with shadow work is the concept of samskaras and
Mm.
are those conditioned patterns. And the metaphor that's often used is ruts in the road, right? If you drive on a muddy road, your tires create those ruts. And then the next time you drive down that same road, the vehicle actually wants to go back where the grooves are, right? And we do this with every thought we have, with every conditioned belief, with every pattern, with every desire, right? Oh, that was a pleasant experience in the past. I want it again. Or, oh, that was a negative experience in the past. I'm going to avoid that at all costs, and I'm going to avoid confronting that situation and confronting my feelings about it. And shadow work is the practice of looking at the ruts in the road, acknowledging that they're there, first of all, which a lot of us don't even realize, the vehicle being our mind, our whole being, and then taking our vehicle and saying, like, what if I create a new path? What if I shift
Mm.
just a couple inches over this way and see where that takes me? Which is also
Um,
so relevant in yogic philosophy. So yes, you're right that when we dive into the philosophy of yoga, Buddhism, certainly as well, and really unpack the dimensions of the mind and the aspects of our personality, we are doing shadow work.
I love that analogy that you shared. That's so like, oh, that's, yeah.
It's so
Very
true, right? And we
So
see
true.
it in ourselves. We're like, oh, I'm here again.
Yeah.
Cute. But in
Same
shadow work,
place.
we don't judge ourselves. So this is
No.
what typically happens, right? Like we catch ourselves, and this is where I know folks who are either yoga teachers or they're listening to this podcast because they've probably, read some good books, are listening to some positive podcasts, are trying to like eat healthier and maybe meditate for a few minutes when they can, or do the things. There is a tendency then when we find ourselves being human, which is natural because we're all human. When we find ourselves caught up in our reactions, in our anger, in our sorrow, in our worry, like all natural flavors of being a human, we also judge ourselves for being human. We say, oh, I should know better. Oh, I read like 5 Brene Brown books. Why am I still feeling this way? Why am I still having this fight with my husband or whatever? And shadow work is the practice of acknowledging all of those layers, acknowledging how we feel in the moment and being okay with discomfort, being okay with it as well, not just judging
Okay
ourselves.
to not be okay.
What's that?
It's okay to not be okay.
It's okay to not be okay. Absolutely. It's normal to not be okay. If I met
Exactly.
somebody and they were like, everything's magical, I have 0 problems, I'd be like, hey, you're either lying
Right.
or I was like, give me what you got. Like, what,
Yeah, like I want some of that.
none of that. Or you're so disassociated from
Yeah.
like life.
But haven't we all been there a little bit in our lives? We get empowered, we're young, we start doing what we're passionate about, we found our purpose, and everything's wonderful. Everything's great. I'm always happy. Happiness only, and that's not realistic. There's so many different pieces and dimensions to that as well, like perfectionism, people pleasing, part of those unconscious patterns that we have inside of us where we're really avoiding something that's in there and everything is just great, but it's really not. And it's okay. There's duality and there's polarity. And you have to just, like you said, I love how you said that. It's like you just accept all of the parts of yourself, and that's when the true transformation starts. Is when you're able to recognize and see those little, form that new path, break the patterns. But the first part, like you said, is like recognizing it, like seeing it, recognizing it, and then you can start to make small shifts. But, we have those aha moments where like, aha, oh my gosh. And those are the beginnings of starting to make those shifts and transitions into breaking cycles and old patterns and there's like ancestral karmic patterns that we have. And with having children, I know that I've had to break so many vicious, like matriarchal, dysfunctional karmic patterns, whether it be money or dysfunctional relationships. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm getting over being sick, but especially with having, 3 daughters, like that has been such a mission to me.
Being a parent is shadow work in practice.
Right? Break the cycle.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that you brought up happiness because there is this very unfortunate collective belief, especially in the wellness world, in the yoga world, right?
Yeah.
That like you need to be in a state of bliss
Yeah.
all the time. And if you're not, you're failing. Like and I'm talking in extremes, but I do think that's the conditioned belief that a lot of us have, especially because we want to feel good. We want to be good too. And those aren't inherently bad motivations, but we can cause ourselves a lot of suffering when we feel like I need to be happy all the time. Just like you said, I need to always make sure I've got it all together when that's just not life. Right. And the practice of shadow work allows us to actually have gratitude and appreciation for our sadness,
Yeah.
for our worry, and to find the value in our worry, like to actually sit and meditate and meet our anger and meet those karmic patterns and those conditioned beliefs, not with further judgment and shame narratives, but to say like, hey, you're a part of me. I'm not going to let you in the driver's seat, but you're in the passenger seat, and we're together. We're in this vehicle, in this existential vehicle together.
Yeah.
So let's talk.
Without those things, we wouldn't be who we are. Such an
Exactly.
important part. The dark and the light, are as equally as important to who we are in our journey.
In fact, a lot of people, right, when you ask people about their lives, it's often the obstacles that they've been through that when they're on the other side of it, they feel so much more empowered by that has helped define and shape their life versus the stuff that came easy. Like I always say as a yoga teacher, I like studying from yoga teachers who have struggled, because if even from a physical perspective, I have a lot of physical limitations, and like I'm not naturally bendy, I'm not naturally strong. So like if I went to a yoga teacher and they were like, I've never had an issue, every yoga pose has come so easily to me, I'd be like, well, you don't know me and my tight hamstrings, right? So we learn so much more even as yoga teachers, right? When yoga teachers experience injuries, or as they get older and they're like, wow, that pose isn't available to me like it used to be, it actually makes them better teachers because they can have empathy for more students, and then they can help students in really powerful ways that they can't if they've never felt that way from inside their own bodies.
100%. I totally agree with you. And that goes back to you saying meeting yourself where you're at without judgment. So important. So important.
And it's a daily practice.
It is.
mean,
it's like every minute.
Yeah, it's like, oh, here we are now. We weren't here this morning.
Yeah.
But it's the afternoon.
So I just love everything the two of you shared, especially about people wanting to feel positive all the time, like blissed out all the time.
Yeah.
So, we attach ourselves to that new bliss, right? That we found through yoga or meditation. And I've gone through that, personally experienced that. I've experienced so many interesting things, but like one of them is this attachment to bliss. And it's almost like if a relationship or, someone in my life messes with that bliss, it's almost like, well, then this person isn't right. Right? Like, or this person, like you made.
Good point, Timmy.
Yeah. And now I can objectively look back and say, well, that's not the purpose of shadow work or yoga. So it was an aha moment. I've had those aha moments where I've created this different understanding of what shadow work was or yoga was. And I just thought you're supposed to feel peace like all the time and walk around and have no reaction, no triggers ever,
Exactly.
Nothing can touch me. I'm just happy all the time.
I've transcended. Exactly. The idea
exactly.
I don't prescribe to the idea that we need to transcend. We need to root down. We need to
We do. But listen, ascension is dirty and it can be mucky, and then you can emerge like the lotus, but it's like sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to really emerge and have that death and the rebirth. And Simi, I was thinking about what you're saying is I used to think like that too. Oh, well, they're not in alignment if, they don't think the same way as me. But now I've made a shift, and, it's almost like the mirror, when something annoys me and someone else, I reflect on that and I'm like, well, what is it within myself? That's clearly something that I need to work on now.
You're doing shadow work.
Yeah. I do a lot of shadow work.
We're good. We're done.
Shadow work, girl. Oh yeah. Yeah, and that has really, really transformed my life. I mean, leaps and bounds, especially in my relationship with my
Yeah.
husband and my marriage,
Yeah.
So we've
I
come a
love
long
the
way.
saying,
Yeah.
you can spot it because you got it, right? And so
Yeah.
what you just said, that's exactly one of the first techniques I ask people to do in shadow work. It's like, how do you even know what's in your shadow if it's unconscious? Look to the things that annoy you in other
Yes.
people, because that will reveal something that is unhealed within yourself. Because, and it's not
100%.
something, it's usually something that like doesn't trigger other people as much as it does you, right? Like that's
Totally.
how you know it's in your shadow. You're like, oh gosh, for me, a big piece of it was arrogance. Like when I thought somebody was talking so highly about themselves, when really that was a reflection of my own self-esteem issues
Yeah.
and my own insecurities, and the fact that like I could never accept a compliment, and I always wanted to be a people pleaser, like you pointed out.
Mhm.
Um, that when I would see somebody actually embodying confidence, I translated that as arrogance. And I had this negative reaction to it. And this isn't like to condone other people's bad behavior, by the way. Like we're not saying like, oh, everything's
No,
fine, because actually this is about taking accountability for
it is.
ourselves, and then recognizing that we can't change other people, but we can change ourselves, and we can change the way that we engage with other people and the world. It doesn't mean, like you guys have pointed out, like doesn't mean we have to be bliss bunnies all the time and just say, oh, it's fine, everything's fine, because that's not how life is.
The important
So,
piece is the no judgment part, but I also like to put in there the word trigger. What triggers you? Like
Yeah.
if you're looking to do some shadow work, that could be a great word for you just to reflect upon, like the things that trigger you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
And Melissa, you had said that you got into yoga at 24, 25.
Yeah.
What, so what brought you to yoga at that time? Like, were you, if you don't mind sharing,
Oh,
was
not
it
at
more,
all. Not at all.
okay.
Actually, it was Reiki and Buddhist meditation. Fun fact, Simi and I have the same Buddhist meditation teacher, Kelsang Chokyan. And so I was fresh out of college in Tampa. I was, 22 and super depressed and anxious and high functioning and hiding it really well and not really just knowing exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And I was working as a freelance writer, and I got a part-time job at a spa in South Tampa. And it's funny because and I know you guys know this, how life works, where you think something that's just going to be a silly little detour ends up being the path and
Yeah.
ends up being the catalyst, right? This silly little side job working as a receptionist at a spa, because I thought like, oh, well, that'll be chill. Everyone will be relaxed, right?
Mhm.
And a woman came in one day to offer Reiki and for free, and nobody else was there. And so I got a free Reiki, a treatment, and it was only 15 minutes. And I had found and I felt this profound sense of inner peace that I had never felt before, that I'd
Mm.
always been searching for. So I was like, okay, what's this? I'm going to learn it. So I did the Reiki attunements, and at the same time, I discovered then Buddhist meditation classes, which was
Yeah.
world opening for me. So that's how I came into yoga, actually. For me, yoga was like, okay, yoga is a nice extension then of energy work and meditation. And I honestly, I wanted to just continue meditating. And I felt like yoga was, especially back in like 2006, 2007, meditation and energy work was not part of the collective conversation, but yoga was getting more mainstream. So I was like, well, I'll become a yoga teacher. I was very practical. I'm a Capricorn. So I was
Yeah.
very practical.
My Venus is in Capricorn and my husband's Capricorn.
Yes, awesome. My husband and I are the same. His Venus is in Capricorn. Gotta love a
Oh,
Capricorn.
interesting.
Gotta love a Capricorn. We're a little stubborn, but we're lovable. But yeah, that's how I came into yoga. Was just being completely rearranged from the inside out by these other methods.
It was all part of the plan. We have to trust in the timing of our life. And, that's another unconscious thing as well. But there is a
Oh
plan.
yeah. And timing, right? Because
Timing is everything.
we have so many conditioned limiting beliefs around timing and putting pressure on ourselves and comparing ourselves to other people.
Mhm.
And that's something that I have been consistently trying to unlearn, because it's such a powerful it's like these stories get ingrained in us, right? And so it does
Mhm.
take time to rewrite these shadow stories that we
Yeah.
possess, especially when it comes to time, because probably for our whole lives we've been taught, like, you got to do this and you got to do this, and you'll be successful when you fill in the blanks. And we know that's not true, but that's our conscious mind that knows that that
Mm.
stuff isn't true. We have to then teach our unconscious mind that that stuff isn't true.
You know what I like about the phrase shadow work? Because, we always hear terms like healing, and, it's almost like something's wrong with it, and or we need to fix it, right? Like shadow work, it almost like I really like that, because it's almost like accepting, hey, shadows are part of being a human, and
Yes.
just like we work with everything else, we just work with that, so
Exactly.
I really love the non-judgment, which you both talked about, aspect of it, and just the way the words came together.
It's such an important part of this, because shadow work is, I think, founded on the premise that you are not broken. You are not a broken vase that needs to be fixed, right? In fact, your brokenness is beautiful, and our messiness is what makes us so wonderful and unique. There's a great phrase that I heard about creative writing, basically, and storytelling. If you look back on movies and books that you've read, the main characters are imperfect, and we love them, right? And it's their imperfections. I think it was Joseph Campbell that said that. It's
Oh
the
my gosh.
imperfections in life that make us lovable. It goes back to like the
Absolutely.
yoga teacher thing. Like, if somebody is just there, like, I've never had a negative thought in my life, I'm like, well, I just don't think that you're going to be the teacher for me.
Right. That's so true. I love how you brought up Joseph Campbell, like the hero's journey, or,
Yes.
the whole concept of recognizing things, and it's almost like we think like shadow work. When we do the work, we come out as if like new, I don't know, like superhuman, but it's really like you come out as a human, just
Yeah.
experiencing the world just differently,
You're
right?
just a different version of yourself, a better
Yeah,
version at the
Yeah.
moment, whatever that may be. And tomorrow
Yeah.
it could change. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. So
So
what go ahead.
it's okay. Go
Oh
ahead.
no, go ahead. No, no, please, please.
So you mentioned, I'm really interested in hearing what is some of the shadow work that you had to work on in order to be able to write?
Mm. Ooh, that's, I'm still working on it.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay, so
um,
that's a constant.
it is. It's such a constant. A big piece that I am currently working on is honesty.
Yeah.
And one of my friends, who's a wonderful writer,
Mm,
she had prompted me and said, um, if you're scared, what are you scared to say
yes.
out loud? Write that down. And that's what I'm
Yes.
having trouble with, right? Because then all these stories emerge. And that's where certain people can develop writer's block, if you will.
Yeah, the fear of being judged, or, we're just judging ourselves when we have the fear of being judged because who cares? You know?
Exactly. The fear of
The
what other people are
fear.
gonna think,
Yeah.
what other people are gonna say. Yes. Yeah.
What are our children gonna think, etc. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for
So
sharing that. That's profound.
yeah, it really, so like that. Now I have another question. So would you say that the shadow, so we have shadows as humans, and it obviously was, created from either our upbringing, societal, expectations. And if you believe in, reincarnation, maybe from our previous life, we're bringing it on. Do you think ultimately it's this feeling of inadequacy, like this, is that what we're ultimately trying to resolve? I don't know if the question made sense.
Oh,
It
it makes
makes
all the sense
sense.
in the
Oh yeah.
world. I feel like you
Yep.
nailed it.
You are
um,
enough.
yeah, which is
Like
easy
you're
to say.
okay.
It's easy to say, right? To embody it is different.
Exactly, exactly. Yes, that has been my experience. I cannot speak for everyone, but I've taught a lot of shadow work to a lot of people, and that is a big underlying source. Just how you put it is beautiful.
Mm.
This sense of inadequacy. That is really the root story, that I am not enough, that then all these other stories emerge from. Well, if I am super productive and if I, accomplish all the things, if I fill in the blank, right, then I will be enough. Then if I am enough to other people in my life and I support them in all these ways, not saying that that's bad at all, but we can get caught up in these narratives and these behaviors that ultimately leave us feeling unfulfilled
Yeah.
because
Yes.
they're not addressing the root, which
Yeah.
is being okay with ourselves exactly as we are. And again, it sounds so like, yeah, yes, sounds so simple, but it's
Right.
really not, because we have a lifetime and possibly lifetimes, and from an epigenetics perspective, we have generations of those stories embedded
Yeah.
within us, that we are not enough, that we are now unraveling. It takes time and loving care.
We also have protection devices and coping mechanisms that we formed as well to protect ourselves, maybe as a child, through pain, whatever it was, and those are all things that need to be unraveled thread by thread,
Right.
and really cared for.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, there's like major traumas that people go through, right? Like it can be so devastating. Like, I don't know want to talk about it. Like, seeing, like, I have this friend who actually saw his dad get shot, like right in front of him. Like there's those major traumas, or you lose your child, like, um, getting sexually abused, like all of these things happen. And that definitely requires, you know, mental health counseling would be a great place to start working on those things. But then I always also feel like, like someone like me, I have to like go back to me, and someone who hasn't necessarily had that type of trauma. Like divorce was my trauma. And then I've had some other traumas, but like, I don't even know if I should call it trauma, because I feel like I'm minimizing like someone in like a war zone getting killed, like, so not to compare my trauma, still trauma to me. But what's interesting is, like, I feel like um many of us struggle with these daily things, like the right, it's not so much like, oh, some big event happened and that's the trauma that we're constantly working on. It's almost like one small thing that left unnoticed happens, and then there's like things get put on top of it, and next thing you know, there's like this big wall and you don't know where to start,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's almost like shadow work is like taking that brick down one by one. So
Yeah.
the only reason I shared that is because I went to a workshop and they asked me to write about traumas, like, what you've experienced. And I wrote about mine. And then we all shared in class. And when I listened to everyone else, I felt like ashamed. I was like, why am I calling this trauma? Like everyone else, like some of the other shares were like, felt like, wow, like that's like way worse than me, you know? And then I felt like almost like embarrassed at the time to even be, to say that I hit rock bottom because of a divorce, if that makes sense. So I think it's, you know, I guess where I'm going with this is just sort of recognizing that it doesn't matter what it might be, it's still good to work on it, to shine light on it so that your everyday life is a little bit like the quality of it is a little bit better.
It's all
Absolutely.
relative, Simi. It's all relative. Yeah.
Yeah. There, there's a beautiful book called The Still Point of the Turning World by Emily Rapp, and she writes about losing her child. And actually, because of that process, she
Ooh,
went through a
do
divorce.
you mind sharing that again? What was the
Yeah,
book
let me make
say?
sure I have the title correct.
Okay.
I haven't read it in a while, but the line that I've always remembered, the book is gorgeous. Emily Rapp is the author. It's a memoir. Um, The Still Point of the Turning World by Emily Rapp. She has a line that says there isn't a hierarchy to pain. There isn't actually a hierarchy to
Love
suffering. And I
that.
mean, she's
Yes.
gone through one of perhaps the absolute most devastating things that a person could go through, which is to lose their child. And yet, you know, here we are. And it's so, and I think I commend you for being vulnerable and
Me too.
sharing that experience.
Yeah.
And you're right. Okay, I am a huge fan of therapy. Love therapy. So glad I have an amazing therapist.
Me
And
too.
having a
The
good therapist is like
best.
having a good spouse.
Makes
I
all
tell
the
you what, like
difference. Yeah.
it's really. I'm so lucky. And so yes, especially for certain things that we experience in our lives, this goes back to our perspective and what we define as, you know,
Yeah.
worthy or unworthy of our own attention, right? Like we judge our own suffering in
Mm,
comparison to other people's suffering. And you're not the only one who does this. I do this too. I actually do this as a coping mechanism. I say like, okay, well, things are really bad right now, but at least I have this, right? It's this mental device that isn't super healthy that
Yeah.
I engage with to help me compartmentalize some difficult things that
mm,
I've gone through. And yet we can also recognize that divorce is incredibly traumatic. Divorce is heartbreak,
Mm.
and it radically changes everything about the foundation of your life.
Yeah.
mm.
So, like, I think about that a lot, actually, like, because so many people go through divorce and then they're still expected to walk around their lives and be like, "Hi, Jim, how are you today?" Like, no, don't ask people how they are. Like,
Exactly.
it's
Well,
so
I'm
hard.
awful. Like,
Yeah.
divorce
I
is
love. I feel
horrible.
like there's that joke, right? Like in America, that we have this, like we have to like keep up illusions and be like, "Oh, I'm good. How are you?" But like in the Netherlands, they're like, nobody asks you how you are because they'll
Yeah.
be really honest and be like, "Thank
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
winter."
I appreciate that when I ask somebody how they are and they're like, well, I've been better. Today's really not the best day, but tomorrow's a new day. I'm just gonna go with
Yeah.
the flow and get through it. I mean, that's where I meet myself at now. I'm like very realistic about, receiving and recognizing and sitting with how I really feel, without putting on a face or a cover or an emotion or acting like I'm okay. Like it's okay to not
Right.
be okay. Yeah.
It's okay
Yourself
to
a
not
friend.
be okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I
You
love
have to
that.
allow yourself to go through things and process them, or else what happens is we do stuff them down and they become unresolved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. The image that I've heard meditation teachers use for that idea is trying to keep a beach ball down underwater. If you've ever been like in a pool and you've tried to do that, it requires a tremendous amount of muscular effort and pressure. Like even if you're holding a conversation with somebody else in the pool, you're still like an unconscious part of you is pushing this beach ball down and having to like negotiate that balance. And that's what we do with our stuff. all the time, all day, every day. And then we wonder why we have jaw pain and neck
Yeah.
pain and low back pain
Mm.
and hip pain, all these things, right? Because we are holding all of this stuff in our bodies, in our fascia, in our connective tissue.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Melissa, I forgot to say you're a Yin Yoga teacher,
Yeah,
right?
I love going slow.
And
And
holding
I really like
poses.
and I really like how you went into that. And it kind of like now it just hit me. It makes sense now. Like, we have this yang lifestyle, right? Like go, go, go. And then yin yoga, it's like slowing down. And it's like almost like balancing the opposite. And then shadow work is pretty much the same, where you're sort of like shining light on the dark, just to,
Exactly. That's why I
yeah.
love combining yin yoga specifically with shadow work, because in yin yoga is defined by holding much more gentle, if you will. Yin yoga doesn't always feel gentle, but it's a floor practice where you're either lying back or using props in certain ways. There's really no standing postures in yin yoga. You're holding poses for minimum a minute and a half up to 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can hold them for up to 20 minutes. That's rare, but it's totally possible depending on the posture and the person. But it's hard for us to slow down. Just like you said, we live incredibly young lifestyles, all of those conditioned beliefs. I've got to be productive. If I rest, then I should feel a little guilty for resting, for taking a break, right? Um, and that's not true. It's just a conditioned belief that we have from living in this yang world. And so doing yin yoga already confronts us with a lot of our stories. I've seen so many people fidget in yin yoga poses because the idea of being still and not even going to your full range of motion in yin, you just get a little bit of sensation and then you pause and you chill and you breathe and you soften. And that's hard for us. It's so hard to do the opposite of what we've been trained to do. And then when you're in those still pockets, these little, each pose is like a little container that then you might be able to invite some shadow work prompts in. And now you're also opening up the fascia in a way that allows you to not just be stuck in the head and reflecting on your stories, but you can actually digest and metabolize some of those stories in a deeper way in the body.
That's some of my favorite type of yoga. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful that you incorporate that in. Love
Yeah,
that.
thank you. Thank you. It's been really fun. Even just like the idea of yin as a definition is so parallel to the shadow, because the shadow is the unconscious. So it's darker, it's what's hidden, it's more, it's so similar to yin because we define yin as lunar, as quiet, as inward, as yielding, right? Yin is the moon, whereas yang is the sun. So if your unconscious is in the shadow, it's also a lunar practice. And that
Yeah.
idea of just going deep and getting really inside of something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is most of your clients, would you say, are female, or do you get like a mix of, yeah?
It's mostly women. Yeah, yeah. There are some guys, of course, but it's similar to the kind of the modern demographic that we have in yoga as well, where more
Mm.
women are drawn to these practices at this moment in history. At this moment.
Isn't that interesting? Even though like all the famous teachers of yoga were or
Yoga was created
popularized
for
were
men.
men, yeah, which is so
My
interesting.
husband has been doing a lot of yoga recently, and he's doing so much shadow work. So incredibly proud of him. But yeah, he's been going to yoga and he loves to do yin and slow
Oh,
flow.
great!
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really amazing to see that. And that's very true. There's usually only there's a handful of men in the class in comparison to women.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And what are like what are some common, I guess, challenges you've seen in most women? If you're open to sharing, I don't know, like,
Oh,
is it like
sure.
very similar?
For women in particular, the story of being the good girl is really deeply ingrained in a lot of us, right?
Mm,
And to be a good girl, most of us have to be quiet. We have to be very polite. We have to shrink ourselves down into acceptable packages for the world and for other people. And we were taught this. And I'm saying we, these are obviously like extremely broad generalizations
Yeah,
that I'm
yeah,
making. I'm not speaking for all women everywhere, couldn't do that, but I'm speaking from my own experience and from the majority of my clients are who are women. And the majority of them have already done a good bit of work, right? Like they take yoga classes or they are yoga teachers or they've listened to podcasts and things like that. And yet this deeper story of being a good girl, and that shows up then 30, 40, 50 years later as
mhm,
being a people pleaser, right?
mhm,
mhm,
Ignoring their own impulses. Their body is screaming at them, right? Their body is in pain, but that doesn't matter because they have to do all the other things to smooth out life for other people until they burn out and until then they can't be there for other people because right, like their body just screams and screams and screams. That's what we see a lot, right?
mm,
Women get really burnt out and exhausted and they ignore their own feelings. We're not able classically to acknowledge our rage and express our rage. So then when we feel even like a little angry, it's like, ooh, I'm not being a good girl. And like we're not
mm,
consciously thinking that most
oh,
of the time,
no, yeah.
mm.
but it's happening underneath the surface.
Yeah, that's such a good point. That starts from such a young age, and I feel like, school really indoctrinates that, and conditions that and programs that as well. So I can definitely see that being a common thing. Although I do feel like there's a shift now. There is a shift that's happening, which is very promising. Very promising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And on one of the shadow work techniques that I love to begin with, that I learned from Dr. Ashley Sweet. That's how she started this whole journey back in 2017, I think, 2018. She had us write down the shoulds that we were told growing up. And it doesn't matter by whom, right?
Yeah.
Parents, just the, school, just like things that you hear, living in the world, right? You
Mm.
should be nice. Not a bad quality. Like I love nice people. Big fan, love nice people. But our unconscious metabolizes that story of like, I have to be nice as I have to be nice all the time in every situation. And I've actually
Mm.
been in situations where my physical safety was threatened and I didn't want to cause a scene because
Mm.
the nice
Mm.
girl story
Yeah.
was so deeply ingrained within me, right? That like it's really hard for me to cause a scene.
Yeah. And on the other hand, I'm a very direct person, and I've learned to be that way after I've done much healing and shadow work of people pleasing, um, and that, and I always come from a place of love, but as a business owner and a mother of several children, like I'm always direct from a place of love, and so sometimes for people, like you said before, like when you saw people who were confident or whatever, that can be intimidating for certain people who are still
Mm.
dealing with certain things that they need to work on. I found that to be really relevant, like in my restaurant, like with employees and stuff like that. But I preface them, I'm always coming from a place of love. I'm just very like get to the point. I don't beat around the bush anymore. I'm very mindful about the way that I say things, so that it
Yeah.
doesn't sound bitchy, but I am very direct, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the bitch archetype is a big one for women, right? Like
Yeah.
we're taught that we're not supposed to be bitchy.
Yeah.
Like that's the joke, right? Like a woman who is assertive is,
Mhm.
especially in like a professional context, is
Mm.
considered a bitch.
Right.
But if a
Right.
man is assertive, he's just a good boss.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
which we know is it's total bullshit. Like, we
Total
know.
bullshit.
We
Yeah.
know this. And yet it can be really hard. It can be hard to embody that strength, because it's not how we're trained to be, and it's not how we're trained to
Yeah.
be perceived by others.
So
Very true.
true. And Debbie, how you were sharing that about the restaurant, how you're direct. Um, so someone that I know used to work for you and said how amazing you and Ron are as bosses, by
Oh,
the way.
thank
So
you.
just so you know. Um, and I can relate to, oh gosh, nice. It took me a long time. Melissa, you were sharing about like not being nice and a good girl. And I would have been your client for sure if I hadn't gone into yoga and did all that work. I probably still will come to you for something. But, but interestingly, like, you know, it took me a long time to understand the difference between nice and kind. Like, you
Yes.
know,
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Niceness and kindness. It's like it sounds the same on the outside, but
Exactly.
really what happens when we embody kindness is like how it shows up in the world is a little bit different.
absolutely. That's
Yeah.
been a huge. I'm so glad you brought up that distinction. That's been a huge one for me, because that's what I've struggled with a lot, and I still struggle with, is wanting to be nice so that I actually end up being unkind. In my attempt
Mm,
at being nice, I don't tell people the truth. And then I have, then there's like this avoidance pattern, which is ultimately is
mm.
unkind to me, and it's unkind to the other person as well.
Yeah. Thank you for
Totally
sharing
agree.
that.
Yeah, like when I was growing up, like so I grew up in an Indian household. There's a lot more culture that teaches women, and I'm sure this is in a lot of cultures, but like everything you've shared, Melissa, like, you know, be sweet, be nice, be a good girl, and this is what a good girl does, and as a daughter, as a sister, as a wife, as a mother. So we take on all these roles, and then we start to meet everyone's expectations because we have to be that nice, good girl, right? and and I don't want to like say the culture is bad or any of that. It's just the stories that I created. I'm taking full responsibility for you know how my mind decided to work with those expectations. But it's also because I was unconscious. I just took it on because no one taught me about yoga. You know, I grew up in a Christian household. We don't talk yoga. And not because they were against it, it was just not something anyone talked about. I didn't The only yoga that I knew was not even from India, it was from here. Like I would see, I was in college and I had an Asian friend who went to yoga class and she was like, you want to go to yoga? And then she had like this mat, and I just thought it was like a cool thing that everyone was doing, and it wasn't that popular at the time, but there were some, I guess, doing it. And this is how many years ago? Like, gosh, yeah. It was like what, 30 years ago. So for me, it was just like that's all I knew what yoga was, you know. So it took me a long time to kind of look at all the layers of like different roles that I was playing and why I was playing certain roles a certain way. And when you were saying about like, you know, when we're in an uncomfortable situation and then we respond a certain way because we want to be nice. And then for me, for some reason, nice always is external. Like I want to be nice to someone, right? But when I started shifting that and started saying, like using the word kind, somehow it involves me. Like it involves me and the other person, right? I don't know why it is that way, but I just feel like it just shifted. That word shifted the way I respond, maybe in a situation, whether it's at work. It's almost like I can still express what I need to express in this situation kindly, right? Like there's a way to like say, well, you know, you're just an awful person, or I think that's like the NVC, right? Like the nonviolent communication, where you're like,
Yeah.
well, I am feeling this way, and I would appreciate, you know, if you could behave this way, or not even behave, but if you could stop calling me that name, or,
Right,
whatever it
right.
might be. It's expressing the needs. Yeah.
I think
Being
that's been a huge
kind.
part in like, don't you think, like in shadow work and in this work that we're doing, making that shift in words or the meaning that we give things is
Yeah.
so important. That's part of the process of healing and making those shifts, I think. And what were you going to say about
Absolutely.
kindness, Melissa?
Just that I loved that how you separated approaching things with kindness versus nice. And I totally resonate with that. That kindness is more of like an internal process that invites you into this engagement with another person, whereas being nice is kind of like glossing over the situation. It's very external. I'm taking a paintbrush and I'm just gonna like have to be nice about it. And that often actually leads to unkind results in my experience that are messier.
Same here. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that so
Yeah.
openly and vulnerably, because I think many of us, like, I just loved that you shared that good girl piece and your experience, because I almost want to say all women that I know have experienced what you've shared.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Shame is it's so sadly universal,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
I'm also so glad that you brought up the word bad, because this is another thing. I learned all of this from Dr. Ashley Sweet. So like I have to give her credit for everything. She doesn't currently teach shadow work, but she's she's just a phenomenal person. So yay for her. Thank you, Ashley. And she also led us through shadow work to understand that these concepts are not inherently good or bad. And this is also what I learned from my Buddhist meditation classes, is
Mhm.
that things aren't inherently good or bad, right? It's about achieving a sense of balance. And I think that's what you were talking about in terms of being nice. Being nice isn't a bad thing. It's just when we take nicety into this unbalanced context within ourselves that it creates a lot of problems for ourselves and everybody.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's judging things good and bad. Those are
Right.
judgments. They both, society, in society, it's like good has, it's like, that's good. Bad is like, has a negative connotation, and it's like, it
Exactly.
just is what it is. It's whatever
Right.
meaning you give it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Love is expressed like in parenting. I'm not a parent, but love expressed through parenting can often show up as anger, right? Like if your child is running across a busy street, you're not going to say like, "Oh, darling,
Yeah.
like we're gonna yell," and that like that is love. That's ultimately a good thing. That's like anger can be a good thing. Anger is not inherently bad. Sadness is not inherently bad. But sometimes
Mm.
when we feel these things, then we layer on extra judgment of like, I shouldn't feel this way, right? I should be happy. I should be positive, when
Mm.
that's just not life.
Very true. And when you talked about journaling, we shared a little bit about that. Like, one of the, I guess, process of shadow work is, writing down like all the shoulds. What other elements, like what other type of tools do you typically give like your clients in your shadow work? Is it like meditation, yoga, a little bit of, yeah.
Yeah, I really find that integrating a guided meditations is so powerful, because when we're in that meditative state, we can open up to these sides of ourselves that we can't when we're in just like our normal mode, right? Like you identified, like the manas, right? Like that discursive thought, very like, yes, I'm analyzing things. We can't always use the same equipment, that being the mind, to solve the issues of our mind. And this is where we can start to welcome in some of these other aspects via breath work, which gets us into a different state of
Mm.
mind, or yoga, which gets us into a different state of being in our body. So yeah, I
Mm.
love doing I've recorded a lot of guided meditations where you meet different aspects of yourself and welcome those aspects in and ask those aspects what they have to teach. Actually, this goes back to the beginning of our conversation, Simi, where you pointed out that like anybody can be a guru, right? Like everyone is our teacher in that sense. And so even these sides of ourselves that we don't necessarily like or want to showcase to the world, they have a lot to teach us. In fact, they have a lot more to teach us than the aspects of ourselves that like we're already cool with.
Absolutely. I want to touch back on the yin positions. When you're holding that position, it allows you to surrender. You have to surrender. And that's when you let go, then you can allow all of these different things to come up, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that. That has been my experience with yin yoga. That's why I love it. It's because you have nowhere to go. You have to surrender and let go, or you don't, and you can fight it. But
you can totally fight it.
Yeah, surrender and let go. It's just that clears away, and you're able to be really present and focus in and breathe in on whatever it may be that needs to be breathed into, focused on, whatever comes up as you release.
Right, exactly. There is a beautiful alchemy that happens in yin yoga because we can't control it. And we like to be in control generally as a control freak. Control freak. I love being in control. That's why I love being a teacher because I'm in control.
Nothing is in control.
Right, which is I take issue with, but that's why I have to do all these techniques.
I remind myself always.
But that's the beauty of yin yoga, especially, is you can't control what happens in your fascia. You can't control like what's happening in your joint capsule. It's just happening. And I love the research that's emerging, of course, from Bessel van der Kolk with The Body Keeps the Score and all that stuff about how our emotions are intertwined in our bodies and how we hold memory in our bodies. And so that also just lends itself to the power of these practices.
Absolutely. And it goes even deeper into how different parts of our body are different centers for different emotions that we store. It's very fascinating. I love that. So cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say that should be another episode. I just love what you just shared. And I have like so many questions and I'm like, wait, that we're gonna go on to like 3 hours.
I know.
I was like, okay, I mean, I can talk about like everything for like a really long time.
Oh yeah, so can we.
I think one of my favorite phrases that I love to say in yin yoga is we store our issues in our tissues.
Yeah.
It's so true. I don't know who came up with that, but I love that.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful that Melissa, you were open to coming on to to do this episode, because I think like when people hear shadow work, like I have some friends, that may look at this or hear this term and go, it sounds like esoteric, it sounds so mystical, but it's really such a grounded practice working with just being human.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so practical.
For sure.
It's so practical. I love that.
And it's not, I mean, yes, it can be really challenging to confront ourselves and to confront the stories that we've learned and that we've been living from that we haven't even realized, like that. But I love that, actually. Like, to me, those are the aha moments where I'm like, oh, thank goodness, now I know, now I can shift and change my way of being. So some people, I think, like I've heard people say over the years, like, oh, that is a door I'm going to keep locked forever. And I'm like, okay, good for you, but like, that's probably not going to be fun for
at some point it's gonna bust open.
Right. It's gonna show up in ways when you are expecting it that are not convenient.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I think shadow work is actually so illuminating, much like yoga, right? Like there's a certain point where people, they start doing yoga, as we've talked about, they start getting high from the yoga practices. They're like, this feels great, I'm gonna do this forever. And then they go deeper with it and they start not feeling good. because they start meeting parts of themselves and
Yes.
other emotions start emerging. And they say, oh, yoga's not for me anymore. And they walk away from it. When that's actually the catalyst, that's the moment where it's an invitation to go much deeper.
Oh, I just love what you just shared because I did that. So I started Buddhism and then I got into yoga and then and then I'm like, and then I started, being a part of this meetup group. And then I started going to so many different types of teachings because I felt like, oh, this is not giving me the answer because like something will happen. And I'm just like, it's not working anymore because I should be feeling blissful. And then you keep, I think it was a monk who said like, or maybe it was a kung fu teacher, like you're looking for water and then you start digging and then you get tired of digging in one spot and then you go to another spot and then another spot. And then like, it's almost like, well, just stay where you're at and keep digging and then you'll find water, right?
Yeah.
I love that. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much. I like Debbie and I, like, we both so appreciate you being here with us. And please do share like where people can find you, find your Yin Yoga class, Yin Yoga course, shadow work course, books, because you're an author as well. So, if you can just kind of guide them to the website or your social media channels.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I'm really honored that you asked me to be on the show today. And my website is theyogawriter.com because, yes, I am a writer. I taught creative writing in college classes for a decade as well. And yes, it's just theyogawriter.com is my website. That's where you can find all of the shadow work stuff. I have a free 1 hour Yin yoga. Actually, I think it's 90 minutes because, as you guys know, I can chat forever. And I have a workshop basically for free that combines Yin yoga and shadow work techniques. So people can get that on my website too, and more Yin yoga stuff and all that good stuff.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. Truly appreciate it. And we'll definitely be sharing all of that like in the description so that way everyone can reach you. Thank you everyone for being here with us. Hope you had an amazing time listening to Melissa Carroll on shadow work. And if you have any topics that you would like for us to talk about, please do share in the comments and also let us know how we're doing, if you're enjoying these episodes and what you might be learning from it. Or if you like to share from your own experience, leave those in the comments so that everyone can learn from it.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can contact us at connect@thesavoryscoop.com, and you can find us on our social media platforms at thesavoryscoop.com as well.
If you enjoyed this episode, please do consider sharing it with your friends, your family, and especially women that may be looking to find shifts in their, quality of their experiences, maybe in their relationships with a partner, with food, whatever it may be. If you are experiencing a shift, please do consider sharing.
Yeah. If you'd like to come on and join us and be a guest, also let us know, or let us know if you feel like somebody would be a great fit as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please do share with us. Debbie's already shared the email, or you can even just leave it in the comments. And and have an amazing day. We will see you next time.